All right, so let's go ahead and get started. That way we are respectful of everyone's time. I'm also going to be recording this on my computer. People like to watch it later on. Perfect. So I am sharing my screen. Hopefully everyone can see that. Just put in the
Yeah.
chat that you can see my screen. Awesome. Today's webinar, one that I am very excited about is um, how to navigate politics and complex stakeholder relationships as a project manager. The goal is to keep this really straightforward, zero fluff, and really give you some skills and approaches that you can use so that you can actually apply it on your own projects or in your current job. That is the goal. So before we get started, just a little bit about me. I am Majuba Bianchi. I go by MJ. And part of what I do, and I have been doing for almost 10 years, is to help career professionals really understand how to build their confidence, gain the right knowledge, so that you are making the amount of money that you deserve in a field that you enjoy working in. If you like, you can follow me on Instagram under I'm MJ Bianchi, and you can also follow our 3T Career Institute page. I'm found on LinkedIn as well and Facebook under the same name, MJ Bianchi, so you can find me on there. Now, in terms of our guest, so Angie, or Angel, I think you go by both.
I go by both, but you can call me Angel. Yeah.
Yeah. And so Angel is not only someone that I respect as a professional, but she's also a really good friend of mine. So I've known her for, a couple of months now. And when she talked about her work environment and what she does, I said, you know what, she's a perfect person to come here and talk to us about managing complexity as it relates to stakeholders. Um, Angie has an amazing background. She has her degree in computer engineering and mathematics, which is amazing. Has, several years of experience working on complex projects, and right now is a director herself. So when we're at that role, we're always managing complex stakeholder relationships. Angie, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just, give a quick introduction about, myself. So as MJ said, my background is, computer science and mathematics. I've worked for, I want to say, almost all of the banks in Wall Street. So I've worked for at least 6 to 7 banks, either as entry level or or a contractor or whatever, wherever I could get in, I would get in, based on the project that was available as an entry level professional. And then with JP Morgan and Wells Fargo, I did take on more senior leadership kind of roles. And then I've moved into the startup space, and I've worked with, 2 to 3 startups where I was leading engineering for, very high touch platforms, right? So the problems are and complexities are very complex when you're managing a high touch platform where, hundreds and thousands of people are using it every day and relying on it, and you just have to have that platform be very stable and optimized. And in my current role, I'm solving, very complex problems with healthcare and analytics and things like that. So that is, a quick overview of my background. Yeah, I mean, I've been in a variety of verticals from like healthcare, banking to investment banking, capital markets, startups, that deal with data, that startups that deal with like education. And right now I'm mostly in the healthcare analytics space. So, I'm excited to talk to you guys about stakeholder conversations and like communication issues and complexities, and definitely would love to, give you any pointers that you can use in your future, when you get into these careers where you're managing people, or you're, talking to the CEO or the CTO, and you know, you just want to be, give them as much clarity as possible. So, so I'm excited. Yep, let's get started.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. We're excited to have you talk to us about navigating a very, I say, sensitive part of project management, program management, and working at an organization. If you'd like to follow Angie, she is on LinkedIn and she's under Angel Punis on there. I hope I said that your last name correctly. So you can follow her on there. I highly recommend that you do connect with her. And then if you're not connected with me, those are all of my um, uh, links for you. So really the focus of our webinar will be to navigate politics and complexities as it relates to project managers. What we want to help push across today is how to learn to read stakeholders and go beyond the titles. Sometimes we look at someone's title and we're like, oh my God, they're a CEO, they're a director. How do I talk to them? What if they think, I don't know something? Or how do I communicate important critical concepts without sounding like without getting nervous or without sounding like you don't know what's going on. So we'll talk about all of that. But before we get into the nitty-gritty of working through politics and complexity, what we do need to understand is who a stakeholder is. Now, a stakeholder, for those who have gotten their project management certification or possibly taken a PM course, really within any standard, a stakeholder is someone who has a stake in the project. Now, the biggest misconception is that when we talk about stakeholders, we're just talking about senior management, and actually that is not true at all. So we just have to go back to the basic definition of who is a stakeholder. So your stakeholder is your project sponsor, really the person who's paying for the project, the person who wants to ensure that the entire project is a success. You as a project manager are a stakeholder because you are managing the project from planning to execution to closing, which means if the project doesn't go well, it's on you. And if it does go well, you get the credit. Your team members, same thing. They are stakeholders as well. And since they're doing the work of delivering the actual product, service, or result, the customer and the client is a stakeholder because they're going to be using the product, service, result, or reports that you are creating. The end users who are interacting with the product, investors, government agencies, suppliers and vendors, employees and employee groups, as well as competitors. If we think about all of these different groups, would you say, and you can put this in the chat here, would you say that every single one of these groups or individuals have a stake in the project, which means if the project goes well, they're impacted, and if it goes bad, they're impacted? What are your thoughts around that?
Sorry, is that a question for me?
For everyone,
Okay.
right? Yeah. How would they be impacted? If you're saying yes, and I'm seeing some yeses in the chat, you're absolutely right. The success and failure of a project impacts every single stakeholder that you're seeing here on the list. And then the next thing is, why do we need to manage project stakeholders, right? Why do we need to do that? So the other part of it is that your stakeholders have an influence. You have to have alignment to what needs to be completed, right? That's the first bullet right here. Do all of your stakeholders understand what we're delivering? You also need your stakeholders, some key stakeholders. This could be management for resources. That's people and money. You need your stakeholders to identify risks. There has to be clear communication and transparency between all stakeholders for a project to be successful. And here's a little point that I can give you. PMI actually did a study, and what they found is that if project managers do not manage stakeholder relationships well, a project can possibly fail. So it's one of those extremely important aspects of project management. If you don't manage your stakeholder relationships well, your customers are not going to be satisfied, right? And there's also legal and regulatory compliances that we have to think about. And overall project success all depends on why you as a project manager need to ensure that you manage your stakeholders really well on your project from start to finish. Now, Angie, I'm going to come to you because I think this is where you can help us understand this a little bit more. So the first question for you is, in your experience, where do you see most stakeholder complexity stem from?
So my experience is more technical than what you would want to hear. So most of you guys, if you're getting your PMP and you want to be a project manager, I mean, 80% of the time you will end up in a tech organization. So what I have noticed is that when you look at an organization, say a tech company, right? So there's a product manager, the person that designs the roadmap of the product. Like, how can this product bring in more money? Or where, how do we see this product evolve? How do we have this product, add more value to our existing customer base? Like, that's the person that manages, the whole path of the product. And then there is the business, right? The business is the group of people that that figure out, like, okay, how, what are the finances right now, and how do we market this product, how do we find more clients? So they are more worried about the profitability, right? And then you have the engineering team, and then you have the platform people, which is me. So you have, like, this is just a very basic breakdown of, like, you know, a simple stakeholder structure. So as you can see, these four groups in itself are, and then there's the compliance, like MJ was talking about, the compliance, legal, security, cybersecurity teams. So you've got like 6 to 8 to 7, 9 groups that will, participate in you getting this product out to clients, to masses, right? So as a project manager, you're going to see complexity because these are essentially different schools of people. Like, they don't know what the other group does. Like, product doesn't know what cyber does or cybersecurity does. Business doesn't know what engineering does. So you're basically looking at people who are siloed, or they've been in that box for so long that they've no idea what's out, what's happening outside. And all they care about is the dates. Like, is this product going to be delayed? Are we not bringing in as much money as we thought we were going to bring in? Is there no profitability? Is there no upsells, right? So the complexity comes from the fact that these groups do not understand each other, and there are gaps. And that's where you come in as a project manager. Like, you open up these, conversations between these groups and have them understand each other. If engineering is saying this is too complex to build, you're going to burn a lot more money, then business has to make a decision on, you know, calling it quits, or to move forward, or, let's burn more money and still build a product because that's going to bring in a lot more profit in 2 years. So there's just, it's such a vast, landscape that, like, complexities can, arise from any area, right? I've seen products where we build a product and then we realize that, it doesn't meet our SOC 2, like, our legal, or like the compliance requirement that we should meet, as a product in a certain vertical, like education or healthcare. So, complexities can arise from everywhere, anywhere. So the most complex things I've seen is, a gap between engineering and product, or a gap between engineering and business. And the translation, but you have to translate two different languages. It's literally like that. And then you have to kind of navigate that. That's where I see the most complexity coming from. Yeah. So
I
I
love that response.
answered that. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. You're right. You're absolutely right. It's the biggest issues come from the lack of communication between groups of people who all have one purpose, to make sure the project is a success. And whenever there's a communication breakdown, then these people will get into fights, there's arguments,
Oh yeah.
and you have animosity, so, and then there's the
Oh yeah.
back and forth emails. So, and that's where you as a project manager play a role. If you're organized, if you understand who your stakeholders are, who plays what role, who needs to come in when, that's why the role of a project manager, you are essentially the master mediator, the person that makes sure that everyone communicates and people are aware of each other. Absolutely love that response. Thank you. The
One
next,
other thing I would add to that is another role a project manager places, you're also empowering people. Because at times you see there are people in these groups that are supposed to make a decision, right? But they will not make that decision. They'll wait on what is the entire group consensus, like what is the consensus going to be, and I'm going to make that decision. But sometimes the consensus is not the right decision. If everyone's a yes may not be the right decision. Maybe a no is a right decision. And that needs to be made by somebody who's empowered or they're in that title. So as a project manager, you'll be in situations where you'll have to empower that person to make a decision. You could go like, hey, Bob, well, you're the director. Like, how do you think we should, navigate this crossroad, like the crossroad we're at? Should it be a yes or should it be a no? So sometimes you're also empowering people, and that's something you'll have to like really understand is in when you're in these roles with complex projects.
I love that. Thank you so much for bringing that up.
Yeah.
Uh, what is the number one rule you follow when it comes to working with key stakeholders? And I think when I say key stakeholders, this would be more in the upper levels of management, decision makers, those that can literally make or break your project.
Yeah. So I have many rules. I'm gonna probably say my top three, if that's okay.
Sure.
So
Yeah,
my
yeah.
number one rule is to understand their managerial style. So say if you're working with a CTO, so I've worked with CTOs from many, many verticals, like CTOs that, that only speak healthcare, they only understand insurance or healthcare, and CTOs that only understand ed tech, CTOs that only ever understand data. So I've worked with many, many people. So you definitely have to do some digging around to understand if they manage up or manage down. So there are CTOs that manage down in the sense that they are interested in knowing what the people like, how the work is getting done with people that report to them. They are very interested in the day to day. You typically see that in organizations that are not very stable. So if there is a company or a place that you're employed in and their product is still taking off, it's not really bringing in a lot of money and they're still trying to find their footing, you'll see that a lot of C-level executives are just, they are managing down, right? They are trying to understand where is the gap, where is the problem, so we'll fix it and try to take this, product, make it land in the moon, right? Essentially. So, and then there are CTOs that manage up, meaning that they are kind of stable and now they're more worried about the optics, right? They want to deliver things that look cooler and newer, and they have these dream projects, and maybe they want to completely rebuild the existing product. So there's different styles. So my number one rule is if you are in front of a C-level executive, you should know their background. Where have they been in? What roles have they been in? Where did they go to school? What have they done with their work experience? Some people are in roles that are literally they're CTOs, but they have no idea how anything works, but they're very good with the product. They know how to build a product and they know how to like bridge gaps between engineering and product. So you really have to do your digging around as to, are they technical? Are they a product person? Are they business? You really, really have to know who you're talking to. Do not go into a meeting without understanding who that person is, what's their style. Is it bottoms down or is it managing up, right? um the second rule I have is what I personally love doing is making their lives easier. Like if you are in a meeting with a C-suite, C-level executive, your aim is to make their life easy. You have to give them something that they can take away from that meeting and they learn something new. I love doing that. So I typically never go in front of a C-suite kind of person without a deck. I never do lengthy, wordy PowerPoint slides. I usually just have one, tops if two, and I love doing visuals. Most people are visual learners. They love seeing numbers, they love seeing pie charts, they love seeing, bar graphs. So, in my career, I do, I talk about like our, cloud architecture. I talk about, our annual spend in our cloud platform. So I like to put up a pie chart. What are the trends, right? How much money did we spend last year? What are the increases this year? Or how can we optimize? So I like to always give a visual chart and kind of convey what I'm trying to tell them visually. That way the information kind of, they can digest the information much more quicker and much more effectively than you just talking, right? So pie chart, bar chart, a one deck with like whatever you're trying to tell them. Do not make it wordy. Do not put paragraphs in there. Visuals. The third rule I would say is, I love connecting with people on a personal level of all, of everything that you're doing, your work, your, product, trying to, understand, the company, the landscape. Above everything, everyone's human. So just trying to understand, like, where they're from, what is it that they enjoy doing, connecting them and making that personal relationship, that connection will take you so far than you can ever imagine. So, what are their interests? Like, my current leadership, they love rebuilding, they love re-architecting, they love doing proof of concepts, they love trying out open source technologies. So I try to make, a personal connection based on that. Like, how do I keep their interest in me? Like, how do I show them that, you know, this is a cool idea and we can leverage whatever idea that I have into like our current stack. So there's so many things you can, really try with a C-suite executive, but, keep it professional, keep it crisp, keep it clean. Um, More visuals, talk their lingo. The, C-suites, if you've ever worked with them, they love their lingo. They have abbreviations, understand, Google as you go, like, they may throw abbreviations at you that you've never heard of, like, so, continuously learn, any time that you spend with them, it's time that you're learning. It's literally like a school because they've had this wealth of experience and they're the CTO or the CEO. That means, it's such a big position. And, at the end of the day, try to get some learning and mentorship from them and and make that mark in their minds that you have ideas, you have things that you want to show them and make that connection. So that's what I do when I work with stakeholders. I think you're on mute, MJ.
Yep, I was sorry. That was amazing. Does anyone have any questions right now for Angie? Any thoughts they want to share? Feel free to raise your hand or put in the chat and I'll be happy to call on you. We can make this interactive for sure. Or if you have any questions you want to for us to review later on, just put in the chat and I will address it. So what I've done is in conversation with Angie, sort of put the slide together just in terms of the summary of what she talked about, stakeholder complexities, where it comes from. So diverse interests and objectives, limited resources, communication challenges, organizational culture, resistance to change, right, Angie? Wouldn't you say that's one thing that you see all the time?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And
Definitely.
then you have, yeah, and then you've got external factors, changing requirements, right? How many times have you seen complexity come from, well, I wanted it this way yesterday, but I think I've changed my mind and today I
Oh
want
yeah.
something different.
That's classic. That's classic. You're gonna see this is a great slide. If I were you, I would take a screenshot because these are exactly the things that you will be navigating, and you need to be designing solutions for each of these issues, like as a project manager. So changing requirements, you need to be able to question the business or, whoever's dictating your product requirements as to why they're changing it. Because sometimes people don't quite know what they want. And it's your kind of responsibility to understand what is it they're trying to get out? Like, what is their end goal, right? And is that even feasible with the engineering team? So you have to navigate all of these like complexities as a project manager, which is very thrilling and exciting compared to my role. So yeah.
Thrilling is right. Nerve-wracking would be the second description. It does take time and experience to get comfortable to navigate stakeholder complexity. Day one as a project manager, I'm sure you have the skills and you have the knowledge, but it takes time to sort of build that muscle of understanding people and so on. We're going to get to that next, but this is where you can see complexity stemming from. So like Angie said, take a picture of this. This webinar is available on YouTube for you again, and I'm recording it, so it's going to get uploaded and you can see this again. Now, Angie, a couple more questions for you. It could be more than three skills or, whatever you can think of. But what three skills do you think are needed to navigate politics and cultural tension when working with stakeholders? And I think in my mind, when I'm thinking skills, I'm thinking more, that's what I should have put down, is more of like soft skills. Which soft skills do you think are needed to navigate politics, cultural tension when working with stakeholders?
So I do like that you did bring up soft skills. Those are, definitely important. So I'll get to the soft skills. But before the soft skills, I definitely recommend knowing the product that you'll be managing, right? So if you're managing an insurance platform, you need to know what Medicare is, what, how like the workflow works within that product. You need to have some basic knowledge of what it is that you're supporting. Even if you're just doing a pure technical project, you need to know what is it that they're building? What is the basics of it? Is it a server? Is it a database? You have to understand some pieces and parts, or everything is just going to get lost in translations. So that I would say is the number one thing that you should know, either the product knowledge or some tech knowledge. I'm not saying you need to be hands-on technical. I'm just saying understand on a very basic level what it is that you're supporting, right? So soft skills, I would say, I think my number one is, I want to say timeliness, because that's something I see with a lot of project managers. Like when the project does not take off or gets canceled, or we just delivered the wrong product and just burned a bunch of money, it's because we're not timely with understanding what's being built and what's being required, right? So to be timely, you do have to keep up with the engineering team. You do have to understand where they are and what is it that they're doing. And you have to be timely with the business on if this is what they really want. Because sometimes these groups kind of shut off and you're out on the island, to be surprised at the delivery date. Like, what are we even delivering? So I think to be timely and to have these follow-ups, be part of the stand-ups, like the daily stand-up meetings, or, follow up with the business, keep understanding more about the requirements, more about, whatever it is that you can learn, by interfacing with them. So I think timeliness for sure. Second is clear communication. I cannot stress that enough. If we're saying these are two apples, tell the engineering team these are two apples, and the business team these are two apples. So you need to, because there's so many people involved, there's so much communication. So I don't know if you guys ever seen that game that people play, like, you tell this person this 6 sentences and you ask them to like whisper it to the second person, and the second person whispers it to the third person, and then the sentence kind of gets lost at the end. And that exactly is what happens with big projects. So you as a project manager is the person that brings in clear, concise communication and clarity to anybody and everybody who's inquiring about the project, who is contributing to the project. And, you need to have, when I say communication, people often just kind of think verbal. I'm talking about written, like even written, like you need to have decks, you need to have spreadsheets, you need to use any sort of tooling that's available out there to convey the status of a project or to convey what the project's about, right? So just really, clear, concise, verbal and written communication cannot be stressed more than enough. I think that a third skill I would say, I'm trying to think, I would say is Um, I would say this is more on social intelligence. So I've seen project managers that are from like very analytical background, right? So they come in and it's more of like a box checklist. Like they have 10 things that they check off with an engineering team. They have 20 things they want to ask a business and they kind of check off. When you're a socially intelligent person, you're really good at sensing what the room is feeling. Like, is this sometimes the engineering teams sign up for things that they can never deliver because, either they're, not too confident to speak up or, whatever. So you have to be very socially intelligent to break the ice, to bring people together, to align people together, to align people from like North and South Pole, people who've never even seen each other. And, like just kind of get everybody on the same page. I think a lot of social intelligence would be needed, like very, very clear, concise communication and just being kind of friendly and gentle. Because sometimes project managers, I think the number one mistake they do is they come on too rough, too hot, and then people are just kind of confused. I think coming in with more of a gentle mindset and being more aware of other people's temperaments and kind of balancing everything till your project's delivered. I think, like I said, it is a hard landscape to, have something be delivered in production in front of clients that, millions of people are going to use every day. I'm just talking about like a high touch platform, which is probably the most complex kind of product that's out there. Like, say you're a project manager in Robinhood, like, millions of people use Robinhood. How do you think they manage that product to roll that out in production, to translate these ideas and to have the engineering team build a complex workload while satisfying the legal and compliance part of it, with FINRA and all these like regulatory, institutions. So I think, so having these skills will definitely take you far. You need to have them, in fact. So
Thank you. That was amazing. Thank you so much. I encourage all of you to think of questions and then use the chat to sort of tell me what you guys are thinking of the webinar so far. Would love to get your input there. Here's another question, right? Angry stakeholders or upset stakeholders. Yeah, right. We never go through that. Do we ever, Angie? Do we ever have upset stakeholders?
oh yeah. At the end of the day, we're all human, right? Emotions
Yeah.
are part of us at work, personal lives. At work is definitely more polished. Angry or upset, stems from the fact that that it's mostly due to disappointment. I'll be very honest. So disappointment is at the very base of it. I've had many experiences, so much that I'm trying to think of a good one. Probably I would say it has to be in my banking days. I've had, people that, we've designed a product that can like, you know, execute a trade. So, trading is very complex. There's different kinds of trades. We built a platform that can execute a trade in this way, this particular strategy that a trader did want. And that strategy was not available in like a third-party tool or our in-house software that we built, but this is a new strategy. And we built it in a certain way. And the business analyst on that product was not happy because, we didn't get the color coding right. Because, sometimes with products and projects is that you're designing it for a specific group of people and they're very picky and the requirements kind of get lost. And, sometimes they get upset about over the simplest, littlest things. Sometimes they get upset over, profitability, right? Like you build something that is so complex, so time intensive. At the end of the day, nobody wants it. No client wants to use it, or the clients are not educated enough. There's not much, intuitive user experience in that product for the client to pick it up and use it. Sometimes you rebuild an already existing application, you burn millions of dollars and nobody wants to use the new application. I've seen that so many times in my banking experience. Like, we think like we want to offer this trading business, this group of business a better user experience. We want to rebuild something for them, and we didn't have to, right? Because they're happy with the old one. So the way you deal with them is, if you know, it depends on like why they're upset. If it's color coding, you know, you take it back to the whiteboard, you know, you can change that. That's, you know, you factor in the development time and then you roll that out, and that's fine. You know, if the disappointment's more about the overall product, like how the product has turned out, you know, what I will tell my stakeholders, you know what, you know, if you feel like, you know, this is not profitable, like, you know, people are not going to use it, let's take it back, you know, let's think about how we can change this up, make it less cost intensive. It's mostly about the money, right? If people are upset, it's usually you're either burning money or, you know, you're bleeding money, right? Let's make it less cost intensive. Let's put it on something else that's much cheaper. Let's bring in the right people, right? Sometimes people are upset because we just don't have the right talent to deliver what you're looking for. So maybe we find, you know, more, you know, financial resources to build an entire team that can deliver what you're looking for. So it really depends on, you know, what is it they're upset about and what is the solution that you can offer. It's a variety of things. But in general, you know, rule of thumb, if they're upset, figure out what it is, you know, one thing I will tell you, redesigning something, it sounds intensive, but I would rather deliver something that is, you know, a minimum viable product than deliver something that is so complex that nobody wants it and we've burned all this money. So keeping your stakeholder in check and making them understand every step of the way what you're building, you know, what is it that you're designing, that goes a long way. And even if it's during, you know, like say you're 50% done with the product and they're super upset, it's not too far. It's not too bad to just go back and rebuild, right? Then just going 100% and then go all the way back to zero, right? That's just how I think about it. So, you know, really, really getting them to understand, you know, the time, you know, the time investment, the financial investment, the status, the product. So it's there's a lot of aspects to, you know, how you can calm them down. But at the end of the day, you do need to calm them down. You cannot leave them in that state. You really have to convince them, you know, there are solutions out there. If you don't know a solution, bring in somebody from an engineering team or a product team or a customer success team that can offer a solution. As a project manager, you should absolutely be able to collaborate with different kinds of people and bring in solutions to a key stakeholder. You should be able to do that. And that's what they're, you know, banking on you for, that you are collaborating and building solutions together and, you know, communicating that out in a clear, concise manner. I hope that kind of helped answer this.
No, it absolutely did. And in terms of while helping them navigate, and you find a solution for the product, you're finding a workaround, you're explaining to them, hey, look, this didn't work out, but here's a different solution. He's our subject matter expert that understands it. But while you're navigating their anger, how are you sort of keeping yourself calm and making sure that you're not losing it and that you don't have a nervous breakdown? Do you have any strategies there?
That is I'm very bad at this because I always overlook my own mental health. Like, you know, I'm more of, you know, I feel like as a project manager, it's very hard to like, it's very bad to tell you to overlook yourself. But I would say, so, you know, as a project manager, you know, you are a stakeholder. It does matter to you if the project doesn't, you know, doesn't work out. But there are the people that are involved in this project have a lot more at stake. You know, sometimes they lose their jobs over a project not, you know, not being delivered. So I would, you know, here's what I do. I know that I am pretty upset, or I am, you know, navigating this hard landscape and bringing people together. But I look at it from the other person's shoes. Like, you know, look at the money they've pledged for this project. Look at the promises that they've made to the CEO, right? And look at everything that's at stake for them. For me, what's at stake is the project. And I get it, but I'm not pledging money as a project manager. I'm not the one looking at, you know, my company budget and going, let's put in 2 million into this. I'm not making that call. So I feel like my emotions are there, but It's much smaller, and theirs matters. I don't know, they just have they have more at stake. They have to get it right because it is, you know, depending on the project you're on, if it's a low intensity project and you're losing it, you know, I would definitely use like breathing exercises, um, take care of yourself after work. You know, I would, you know, there's so many things, there's so many resources out there now that help you with I want to say like focusing on yourself as a more holistic employee than just kind of a person that comes in and checks boxes and kind of like, you know, gets the show going, but mostly about like understanding the bigger scope of your project or understanding more about the company, seeking resources within the company, talking to an HR person. I love doing that. HR people, you know, absolutely. They're always a pleasure to talk to. They have resources that you've never heard of. Like, you know, I worked in a startup that offered like I don't know, like, you know, a life coach. Like, you know, if you needed some break, a time off, they'll put you up with a life coach and you can utilize that time, right? If you needed to go volunteer, they'll give you time off to volunteer. So, you know, find resources within your company that you can use to kind of decompress. But you know, like I said, you know, when you look at it from your perspective, what you have at stake is just project, right? Just getting it to the finish line. What other people have at stake is much, much bigger. And that kind of, you know, helps me understand, you know, from their perspective, what is it that they're going through. And that kind of helps me relax in a weird way. So
I like that. So it's sort of saying, redirecting the energy and your perspective and switching it from this is about me to this is about the project and this is about the ultimate goal.
right. Absolutely.
I love that. What we've also done is on this slide sort of give you some strategies that you can use to deal with an upset or angry stakeholder. The first thing is, like Angie said, you know, stay calm and professional. Like you can't lose it at work, and you can't write those lengthy emails and decide to press send. You are going to lose your job, right? At the end of the day, you can't make this personal. Listen actively. What are they saying that you haven't heard? What has happened? And just understanding that their anger isn't at you, like Angie said. It's about they're either bleeding money or the project that is at stake and their job is on the line. So it has nothing to do with you. So therefore, you empathize. You empathize and you understand, you're putting yourself in their shoes. You know, apologize if necessary, clarify and seek understanding so that you can help come with the solution. It's a team thing, it's not a you thing. It's a group effort, it's not just on you, right? Offer solutions, bring on a subject matter expert, strategize with your team, have, you know, create a tiger team where you are finding a solution to a major problem. Set the expectations. Like Angie said, a lot of the stakeholders look at you as a project manager to say, what's the best direction for us? Maybe they have blind spots they haven't seen. And once you do implement a solution, you do have to do the follow up. And also there are instances where it really is out of your hand and you have to involve upper management. You have to bring them in to make sure that the stakeholders that are angry and that are upset are getting more support and more alignment so that everyone's on the same page and you can then move the project forward. And in all of this, learn and improve. Every opportunity that we have, every job that we hold as project managers, we are not going to be perfect, right? The day that I was given a PM job, I don't think I was 100% perfect. Neither am I today. But I've used every mistake to learn really quickly and improve so that on the next project, I am doing better. So this is your tips so that you can navigate that space. And here's another slide that I think, you know, going on an interview, a lot of the questions in today's world, when you go for a PM position, you get asked a lot of soft skills questions because your resume already says what you know technically. But as Angie said, social skills are key. Now, when you get hired, they want to say, are you someone who loses their mind and gets angry really fast, or are you more of an individual who knows how to communicate with stakeholders and comes up with a solution? So as I was building these slides, I said, well, what would be an interview question that you would be asked, right? One that would be similar would be, tell us about a time you navigated complex stakeholder relationships while meeting project objectives. So this is really a two-part question. So you want to answer part one, and then you want to answer part two. And my interview tip is always when you're answering an interview question, be conscious of the amount of time you take to answer that question. My rule of thumb is no more than a minute and 20 seconds, and that it should be very concise and clear. So the first part of this question says, tell us about a time you navigated complex stakeholder relationships. So first you have to say, how do you answer that part, right? The way you would answer this is say, complexity exists on every project. Doesn't matter how small, medium, whether it's a small or a large project. One of the ways I have navigated complexity on projects, especially when it comes to stakeholders, is to make sure that there's alignment to the objectives of the project and that I clearly communicate what it is that we are trying to achieve. While that's happening, it's also ensuring that the team understands what their responsibilities are and that there's continuous communication among all parties and that we are delivering to the project's objective. So now you've sort of like said, yes, you've worked on complex projects, but then now you've said, hey, look, I'm a project manager who comes with knowledge, skills, and tools. I need to manage my relationships. I need to manage my team. And I need to make sure that all of these different groups of people are aligned to what? That one goal, which is meeting the project's objective, releasing a successful product, making sure end users are happy, and that it aligns to the business value, and that it brings profits and benefits over the next couple of years. What are your thoughts about this question, Angie? And do you have any input or recommendations of anything or a different way you would answer it?
No, I think you've covered it all. So, so this is the classic interview question. This is a question that will get asked to somebody, a candidate that's interviewing for a CEO position, president of America, to somebody who, is managing a project. It's a very classic. You will get asked this question, so you better have your situation ready. So the interviewer is looking at they are going to think about how complex your particular scenario that you're going over. There's things that go from launching a rocket into the moon into, changing the color of a button in, I don't know, in a small interface, right? So you have to, for you to like land this job, you have to understand really what is that position that you're going for, in generally what is it, what are the things that they're working on, and you have to kind of make your scenario as complex as it can be, or as maybe not so complex, so you're kind of fitting into what they're looking for, right? So you definitely will have to come up with a proper scenario where you are going over, like, but be careful with the time, like be very time conscious. You don't want to sit there for 20 minutes explaining it, but you will have to practice this question really well and go through like do a mock interview, have your friends do it, right? And walk the interviewer through that situation, how you got out of it, how did you meet the project objectives. I think there was like an abbreviation for it, MJ, I forget. Wasn't it like, I don't know, like a situation, problems, and actions, and
Yeah,
results?
it's called the STAR method.
Star method. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would definitely use a star on this. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great recommendation. Thank you, Angie. And that sort of brings us to the end of our webinar. Before let me sort of also show you guys, if you are interested in continuing your learning, one of the classes that I have coming up is how to manage a hybrid waterfall and agile project from start to finish. This is a workshop, and the goal of this workshop in the 8 hours is that we go through. I've created a workbook with about 30 different tabs that helps you navigate, how to really run a project. How do you create your charter, to risk management, to stakeholder engagement, to communication. Again, as a PM, we're like an octopus. We have to truly navigate so many different parts of a project, and sometimes having a tool that you can see and physically that you can use to navigate your project and input information is really going to help you. So if you're interested in that hands-on approach, this is not your PMP class to pass an exam, but it's really about understanding how to manage a real life project. The other thing is, if you are interested in becoming a certified project manager, our January class sold out so fast, but we do have enrollment for February. And if you're interested in that, we can definitely enroll you in that. For those who are looking for more of a project management IT resume, I offer that as well. A lot of career coaching, and we're enrolling for that. And we have a lot of payment plans and afterpay available if that's something you want to utilize. So just message me, send me an email, and I'd be happy to help you with any of this. Now it's your time. We've got a couple more minutes to answer questions. So go ahead and raise your hand or put in the chat that you have a question, and Angie would be more than happy to answer it. Yeah, Suzanne, go ahead.
Hi there. Thank you so much for this. This has been really informative. I was curious though, is there any set of questions or things apart from the technical requirements or deliverables? Are there any questions that you tend to ask stakeholders in your initial meetings with them that would give you the information that you can utilize in your future sessions or if anything goes wrong?
Angie, do you want to?
Yeah. So if I were to kick off a project, right, and then I have stakeholders, I have the business leads, the BAs, the tech leads, and everybody in one room. My first question would be, when do you need this delivered in front of the clients? Like, when is the deadline? I know it's a very bad question to lead with, but that's just how I am. I like to get straight into business. But you don't listen, as a project manager, you can develop your own style, right? Like, but for me personally, I love dates. I need to know what they've promised the clients. What have we already communicated? What is a what does a minimum viable product look like to you? So there's going to be people that tell you to deliver the entire rocket into moon, and then there's going to be some people just tell you that could just tell you like to design a paper plane, right? So what is a minimum viable product for the business, right? So that would be my second question. Like, what does the least successful prototype look like to you? Because if we're not able to deliver what you really, really want, what can we be happy with? Like, you need to know what that looks like. That could also be a product manager's, but as a project manager, you're facilitating, right? You're facilitating conversations, you're facilitating the entire project. So that is still a right question for you to ask. And then I would definitely ask about capacity. So with engineering teams, I'm assuming you guys are all going to go into the technical space or the tech space. So the engineering capacity is definitely a question. I would ask the tech lead, what does your capacity look like, for this month, next month? How many hours do you have for this project? Do you need staffing? Do you have budget? Do you have infrastructure budget? Products don't come out of nowhere. You have to pay for them. You have to build them in a platform, and that all costs money. So, and then I would figure out, there's so many, I would figure out, are there any compliance requirements? Is cybersecurity okay with this model? Are they going to sign off? So I would identify. So these are all great questions, but first and foremost, you need to make sure that you have all the people in the room. Many a times project kickoffs, most people skip it because it's a kickoff, but you need to understand who are the key people that need to sign off on this project. And you need to get their names and make sure they're absolutely involved and there. and their teams are dedicated to this. They have hours. So, just understanding who the exact key stakeholders are, what does their capacity look like, the timelines, what does an MVP look like for this product. So these are some of the questions that I would ask, going into it. So
Yeah, those are great. Anyone else? Kadea, you got any questions? What about your thoughts on the webinar? What did you think? Did it sort of answer your question of how to navigate complexity? Any thoughts around that? No thoughts? That's okay too. Oh, we see something in the chat here. The webinar has been great, tons of great advice. Good, Kanea. I'm happy to hear that. And that's what we try to bring to you. And I'm sure we're going to have more engagement on our social sites. So I'll gather those questions, and then Angie, you'll get to answer those as well. But for now, I want to thank, first of all, our guest, Angie, for being here today. Thank you so very much for giving us your expertise and your knowledge. I absolutely appreciated. Our 3T Career Institute students appreciated. So thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome, MJ. Absolute pleasure. I love mentoring. I love, talking to people that are, trying to make a career switch into IT, project management. You guys can reach out to me anytime you need. I'm personally coaching a friend of mine who's trying to get into the same space that I'm in. So, I love doing that. So, it's always a pleasure. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Last, I did want to put my cell phone number here. If you have more questions, comments, thoughts, or are interested in any of those classes that I showed you, proactively managing a project, the PMP class, or building an IT and project management resume, just send me a text. We'll have a conversation and see if that program aligns with what you are looking for. So definitely take a picture of the screen and reach out. I try to answer as soon as I can. Our next webinar is going to happen February 1st, and this is a question I get all the time. Should I get a certification or a master's degree? It seems to be sort of that question these days, is a master's degree worth its weight? Right? And should you spend close to $100,000 on a master's degree, or can a certification get you where you want to get in terms of your career? So we look forward to having you in that webinar. If that's something that interests you, again, February 1st at 12 p.m. And that brings us to the end. Thank you so much for joining, and I look forward to seeing you in our next event.
Thank you, MJ. Thank you, guys. Bye.
Thank you.